Hello and good morning to everyone. I hope everyone is ready to listen, no? As today's topic is important as you seem it is, and it's knowledgeable as well. So, before that, let's have first our recapitulation of the previous topic, which is all about the Philippine laws protecting against gender discrimination. So in this topic, we were able to grasp the different laws that was able to help us see na there are existing laws that helps not just women actually, but as well to the members of the LGBTQ community for their safety and to be away from harm. So the first law is the RA number 9710. So to summarize everything that is presented in your screen right now, this law, which is the RA 9710, or also known as the Magna Carta of Women, aims to end discrimination against women and protect them from all types of violence. So this law, actually gina-ensure niya that women are prioritized and safeguarded as well in terms of disaster relief, education, and scholarship. So like overall, this law empowers women, promotes gender equality, and it also enhances the growth of the society. So the second one is the RA number 7877 of 1995, or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act. This law addresses physical, sexual, psychological, and economic abuse against women and their child by intimate partners. It provides legal measures such as restraining and protection orders, ensures access to medical care, legal assistance, and counseling for victims, and imposes strict penalties on perpetrators, including imprisonment and fines. Additionally, this law promotes public awareness and education campaigns to prevent violence and support victims. And last but not the least, we have here the RA number 11313, or also known as the Safe Spaces Act. So this law addresses all forms of gender-based sexual harassment, or in short is the GBSH, in public spaces like streets, schools, roads, and even buildings. It targets unwanted sexual actions or remarks, including catcalling, intrusive gazing, taunting, cursing, and even the persistent sexual jokes. This law also imposes penalties such as fines for those na maglabag ani nga law. Also, it provides mechanisms for victims to report incidents and seek support, ensuring that complaints are handled promptly and fairly. So that are just some of the laws espoused by our country that aid in protecting against gender discrimination. And in line with this, while these laws are commendable, their effective implementation faces certain drawbacks, as there are existing challenges and gaps that are profoundly visible in today's society. And with that, our group would like to tackle and share with everyone about the gender protection implementation, challenges, and gaps. First of all, I would like to introduce myself along with my co-reporters for today's session. I am Dieter Caelpillo with Christine Linares, Astrid Soriano, Hali Ragpala, and last but not the least, Ira Villarin. Let's move on with the following objectives that is reflected on the book itself. So the first objective, identify the difficulties in the implementation or enforcement of Philippine laws on gender protection. Second, distinguish among causes being due to the government, culture, and society, among others. So to start our discussion, we will share the challenges and gaps in legal protection against gender issues in the Philippines. Presenting first is Ms. Eve Ira Villarin, who will share some of the key information our group has gathered about this topic.
Once again, good day everyone. I am Eve Ira S. Villarin, and I am gonna tackle the challenges and gaps in the legal protection against gender issues in the Philippines. The Philippines has made progress in gender equality and women's rights, but challenges and gaps persist, affecting women and the LGBTQ communities. So the Philippines has enacted various laws in promoting gender equality and women's rights over the years, pero naagihapoy cases of discrimination, violence, abuses, and unequal access to education and work because of some challenges and gaps in the legal protection against gender issues in the Philippines, and it affects Filipino citizens, especially the women and the LGBTQ community. One of the biggest challenges in legal protection against gender issues in the Philippines is having a weak enforcement of the laws. Though daghan laws to address gender issues like some laws discussed in the previous lessons like the Magna Carta of Women of 2009, the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, and the Anti-Harassment Act of 1995, daghan gihapon cases of gender-based violence nga wala gina-report. And if reported daw kay halusa daw dili gakahatagan og justice ang victims. So here is a real-life case I've read in Google reflecting the issue. A teacher in a small town in the Philippines faced continuous violence from her husband over the years, and despite the presence of Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, she found it extremely challenging to seek justice and protection. Iyahang gina-report sa barangay ang violence, but unfortunately gina-take lightly ni siya sa barangay, thinking family problem rato, and magkabati ra sila as a husband and wife. Kasi silahang mind, di ba, ang husband and wife kay naman jud na daw sila away, and gina-encourage nila sila duha nga magkasinabot sila. So naa gihapoy chance, especially if gapuyo gihapon sila together sa iyang asawa, nga magkita o gi-assault na pod siya sa iyang asawa kay tungod sa wala siya gitagaan og immediate help. And worse kay i-threaten siya, causing for her not to report na lang and to endure the violence. So having laws is not enough. Dapat pod i-properly and strictly enforce and observe ni siya sa mga tao kay despite these changes, naagyapoy cases of various gender issues tungod sa weak enforcement, and authorities and community should immediately help people who are seeking for safety and refuge. Another challenges we are facing are the cultural and societal norms that perpetuate gender inequality. So these cultural and societal norms that perpetuate gender inequality present significant challenges that limit a person's access to and ability to follow their true interests. For example, consider a man who wants to pursue his passion for fashion designing, but he can't because, as the oldest son, he is expected to be the family's breadwinner, a role traditionally associated with masculinity, and people often discriminate against his passion, saying nga ang fashion designing daw is not masculine and does not suit him. So this societal pressure restricts him from following his true interests. Another challenges mentioned is the harmful cultural practices such as child marriage and trafficking of girls and women in the country. An example of this is a girl being forced into marriage with a much older man as part of a traditional practice in her community. So, child marriage is still prevalent in some regions of the Philippines because of the cultural, economic, and social factors. And some families force their daughters or son into marriage and send them away to their spouses in exchange for money or property. So, these cases are one of the challenges that still occur in our country. And lastly is the lack of laws that protects the rights of the LGBTQ community. As of now, there is no national law specifically dedicated to protecting the rights of the LGBTQ community in the Philippines. The SOGE, or the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity and Expression Equality Bill, has been proposed multiple times in the Philippine Congress. This bill seeks to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression in various areas such as employment, education, health services, and access to public services. So this bill is for the LGBTQ community. Pero bisan the bill has gained significant support from the LGBTQ advocates, it has faced opposition and has not yet been enacted into law. So to address these issues, a holistic approach is essential for addressing gender issues in the Philippines. Multi-sectoral efforts is needed. The government must prioritize law enforcement and create new protective laws, while the justice system should support survivors with legal aid and counseling. Education should include gender sensitivity training and promote respect for diversity and inclusion. Especially, gender discrimination doesn't just happen in the adult world. It also occurs in lower levels of education like elementary and even kindergarten. Girls and boys are often shamed by their classmates for acting outside the expected standards of femininity or masculinity. This is why education is so important in addressing these issues. And civil society organizations also play a crucial role in advocating for gender equality and supporting survivors with legal aid, counseling, and shelter. And lastly is the media. The media and entertainment industries should use their platforms to promote positive and inclusive messages on gender equality and human rights. So in simple terms, everyone needs to work together to address gender issues. The government must enforce law, schools should teach respect and inclusion, community groups should support survivors and promote equality, and the media should use its influence to spread positive messages about gender equality. Lack of implementation and enforcement of laws. A study by the government-funded Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or the PIDS, highlights the country's failure to enforce law protecting women's rights effectively. Despite having strong laws like the Magna Carta of Women and the anti-rape law, women face numerous challenges, including gendered labor division, violence, and human trafficking. Specific issues mentioned in the studies are rape is the most common form of sexual abuse, followed by incest and fondling. Women constitute 98% of rape victims. Incest occurs in 33% of cases. Many minors are sexually exploited for pornography or prostitution. And according to the 2015 Child Protection Network, girls account for 87% of reported sexual assaults, with 11.7% occurring at home. And victims of sexual exploitation often range from 10 to 18 years old, with young girls at higher risk for STDs, including AIDS. And girls, particularly in rural areas, face illegal recruitment, sexual discrimination, expulsion from school, forced labor, and prostitution. So according to the study, kani daw nga mga issues and cases kay mas galala annually tungod pod sa mga galala nga discrimination against women, and also the lack of supportive resources and services for vulnerable children, especially those living on streets.
So at this point, let us talk about the limited access to legal remedies for marginalized groups. Now, there is a limited access to legal remedies for marginalized groups in the Philippines even with the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Now, this Constitution, or the 1987 Philippine Constitution, is the fundamental law here in the Philippines. It establishes the structure, policies, roles, and duties of the Philippine government. It contains the Bill of Rights and sets out the state's obligation to promote and uphold social justice and human rights. Now, this Philippine Constitution mandates free access to courts and quasi-judicial bodies and adequate legal assistance, and yet effective and relevant access to justice system by the marginalized continues to be an aspiration. Now, access to justice is hampered by a number of economic, structural, and institutional issues such as the time limits, the expense, the complexity of legal procedures, and the geographic and physical limitations. Now, it is significant that many people, especially those who belong to the marginalized or disadvantaged groups, do not understand their legal concerns or know how to legally address them. So, it is true naman that those people na nagbelong sa marginalized groups, kay most of the time, dili jud nila i-address ilang mga issues legally because of the limitations on their side, and also because of the justice system here in the Philippines. As we all know, our system or the justice system here in the Philippines is very slow. And that's why maglisod pud sila. So instead of addressing it legally, pasagdan na lang nila or like set aside na lang nila. Also, the trust in the court system and the cost are also significant variables in influencing whether or not people seek legal assistance or take any action to address their legal issues. Now, according to the World Justice Project 2018 survey, about 80% of the Filipinos lack access to legal counsel. The situation was made worse by the fact that of those 20% who were able to receive legal remedies, 72% turned to their friends and families for advice, 15% to lawyers, and the remaining 12% to institutions. Now, here are some of the reasons. According to the UNDP poll, the expense, the inconvenience, the time required to pursue legal remedies, and the general lack of interaction with lawyers were the main barriers preventing Filipinos from using legal services. Now, Filipinos working abroad, those with disabilities, small and medium-sized business owners, and the indigent clients were the group of people that is most exposed to this kind of barriers. Now, it takes a lot of time and energy to navigate the Philippine justice system successfully. It is so difficult, and for many, impossible to prosecute a case whether it be due to lack of funds for filing fees or lack of convenient access to transportation to transport parties and witnesses to and from court. This includes work done for free. It can be difficult for a lawyer to provide pro bono services because of the additional overhead costs. Now, pro bono is a short Latin phrase which means for the public good. The term generally refers to services that are rendered by a professional for free or at a lower cost. As a result, if one's paid services are insufficient, the lawyer will suffer significant financial burden. So the best place to offer free legal aid is through law firms because they have the messengers, the paralegal staff, the technology, and other resources to support such initiatives. However, this is frequently hampered by the inadequate connection between people who needed legal assistance and these firms because they are located in the business district of the cities. Over time, people lose interest and cease contact with their attorney. The physical and financial difficulties make it very difficult to follow through and succeed despite many lawyers who are prepared to assist.
So the next gap in legal protection against gender issues here in our country is the limited awareness and understanding of gender discrimination and legal protection among the public. So, as you can read in the presentation, in the Philippines kono, the LGBTQ community confronts widespread prejudice and lacks comprehensive legal protection. So in this statement, what do we mean by the word prejudice? So, for the information of everybody, prejudice means any harm that results from some action or judgment, which in this case, this means that our LGBTQ community kono is facing wide discrimination and kulang ang legal protection that completely protects the right of every LGBTQ member. So, kani which then results for the denial of their rights as human, rights as being part of the economy, their cultural rights, and as well as their political rights. So in this slide, presented to you are just some of the examples of the common situations which eventually and unfortunately still happen and is encountered by some of the LGBTQ individuals. So political rights. As we all know, it's the right of every person to participate in politics and even run for a position in public office. However, some of the LGBTQ members struggle due to the existing stigmas and discrimination that often discourages them from running, which results in denied access in the participation in politics. So stigma, like many societies man jud karon, no, still have strict views on gender roles and sexual orientation. Like napadyapoy thoughts sa ilang mind or belief naga-exist na men are dominant in terms of leading and is capable of, in which I think is not true, because at first, leadership or the ability to lead isn't and shouldn't really be based on our sexual orientation. So like, due to this existing stigmas, like this, mugrow na dayon ang misconceptions or even lack of understanding, specifically to the LGBTQ members. Because naa naman dyan murag thought nag-struck sa ilang head na usually men or like whatever gender they believe to be is naay capable of leading. So like this will cause na dayon having many people to hold incorrect beliefs or like mali nga pagtuo about the LGBTQ individuals, which can result in prejudices, and as a consequence, these existing prejudices leads to the denial of their political rights as a member of the LGBTQ. Next is the denial of their economic rights due to workplace discrimination. For the information of everybody, everyone has the right to fair employment and protection from discrimination in the workplace. However, there are still many LGBTQ individuals who face significant challenges with their economic rights due to discriminations. Additionally, because of the lack of understanding and the negative stereotypes about the LGBTQ individuals, it eventually leads them for fewer job offers and is limited for opportunities to secure stable and well-paying jobs. So like ang example ani no is specifically for transgender people. Like actually some of employers manjud today and like even before, like some lang is they seek to employ the traditional gender role, which is men and women, and actually strict jud na sila, especially employers in companies and stuff. And in terms of that, and it's actually so unfortunate and Louis for those who has really the potential, and due to this no, individuals face barriers with accessing fair and equal employment as well, and opportunities leading for the denial of their economic rights. Next is cultural rights. It is being denied when some LGBTQ individual receives unfair treatment at workplaces. So, LGBTQ individuals often face unfair treatment in the workplace due to biases rooted in religious and cultural stereotypes. Like, some religious beliefs, no, they actually believe that the other sexual orientation, aside from male and female identities, as morally wrong or unnatural ko, no. And actually, this influenced how LGBTQ employees are perceived and treated. Meanwhile, on the other hand, cultural stereotypes kay ga-play Japan siya role since there are existing misconceptions na gina-associate nila ang for example, gay men with femininity, or like they view transgender individuals as something that is confused. So because of this, no, this would raise a challenge, especially for the LGBTQ members, as they might experience or may experience discrimination in hiring, promotion, and everyday interactions, which can actually hinder their ability to work in an inclusive and supportive as well na workplace. Fourth is human rights. Human rights for LGBTQ individuals include the right to live free from verbal or physical abuse based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. However, many LGBTQ members face denial of these rights through experiences of harassment, bullying, and violence due to societal prejudices, just like of those examples stated earlier, and discriminatory attitudes as well. So like these mistreatment not only infringes on their basic dignity and safety, but also it creates a barrier contributing to exclusivity and inequality. So these are just some of the discriminatory practices that contribute significantly to the limited awareness and understanding of gender discrimination and legal protection among the public. When LGBTQ individuals are systematically denied political, economic, cultural, and human rights, it actually leads dayon to stereotypes and misconceptions about their capabilities and rights. So, this lack of awareness and understanding kay gina-prevent niya ang meaningful progress towards equality and inclusion. Like, there are laws lagi that are implemented to protect anyone from harm. However, dili jud maiwasan ang harm through discrimination and judgment by others. But we can actually offer a solution to this, no? Maybe through education, advocacy, and legal reforms so that we can build a society that is respectful and protects the rights of all individuals regardless of whatever sexual orientation or gender identity. So the community is becoming more impoverished as a result of the following. So before that, impoverished in this context means that community is becoming poorer or experiencing a decline in their overall well-being and quality of life. And this is because of the following. First is the denial of basic rights to employment. So, LGBTQ individuals may be denied job opportunities due to their sexual orientation or gender identity, just like sa example na ako kanina. Second is denial of basic rights to housing. So due to discrimination in housing, it can actually lead for like individuals that is member of the LGBTQ being denied rental housing. Like the LGBTQ individuals may struggle to find or like maintain a safe housing where they feel free or to live free without the fear of harassment, violence, and even judgment. So the third is the denial of basic rights to education. So like LGBTQ individuals often experience bullying and harassment in schools, which can hinder their academic performance and well-being. Like for example, anino is like kanang bullying nagaka-happen sa school. Actually, it can really lowen down someone's confidence, no? The same as well na maka-affect siya sa absenteeism due to fear na mabully ang bata, and it can also affect them to have a lower self-esteem. And like worse na situation or scenario anina is that it can affect the student na dili na lang mo eskwela kay na may gabully sa ila or like they are being harassed, which stops them from entering the school and feel safe. And lastly is the denial of their basic rights to health. So like LGBTQ individuals may encounter barriers in accessing healthcare services, such as denial of gender-affirming care. An example to this could be transgender person being refused from hormone replacement therapy by a healthcare provider because the healthcare provider believes is like dili kay siya supportive or knowledgeable about transgender health needs. So these are just some of the injustices that really contribute to the inequalities that happens in our society, and it's really a need for us to have policies or like protection to ensure equal rights and opportunities for every individuals, mapa LGBT man or not. And with that, gladly, there are laws designed to prevent discrimination as reported from the previous topic actually, such as anti-discrimination policies or whatsoever. However, According to Deccan 2019, there's no law in place that fully protects LGBTQ rights, or there may be existing laws, but these laws are often not enforced effectively or have loopholes. So this means that LGBTQ people still still faces discrimination, no? Like, for example, while there may be laws against discrimination on paper, like na-establish siya, but they might not be followed in practice due to societal biases or like existing issues with how they are implemented. Like, for instance, despite lagi nga na ay anti-discrimination policies and workplace, but still individuals from the LGBTQIA+ community encounters prejudices during job interviews or promotion due to ingrained biases among hiring managers or like employers, just like what is stated earlier.
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex or the LGBTI individuals often face significant challenges and adversities due to their sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, or sex characteristics. Many still encounter various forms of maltreatment, which includes harassment, bullying, and discrimination in different spheres of life such as at home, in educational institutions, workplaces, and public spaces. Discrimination is nothing new for the community, as for many years, people are to come to them saying that what they want and what they're doing is something that is not normal, by giving unsolicited advice that no one asked for in the first place. One example of this happened a month ago when an interaction of a TikTok user and a joyride driver went viral on social media. On TikTok, a joyride passenger, Kim Ezekiel, shared a recording of his uncomfortable experience with a driver he recently booked. In the clip, the driver was interrogating whether he was happy about his wrong lifestyle.
Paano ko ang buhay mo?
Hindi naman.
Ha?
Hindi naman po.
Masaya ka sa ganyan?
Oo.
Masaya ka? Masaya ka? Sa maling pamumuhay? Alam mo tama't mali. Masaya ka?
Hindi.
Bian, walang papasok. Hindi ka pwedeng iligtas ng Diyos kung ayaw mo. Be honest lang. Binabalik lang kita sa normal.
Apparently, Ezekiel's choice to be impeccably dressed and fully made up hit a nerve in the driver, who had a lot to say about his own views on religion and redemption. The driver suddenly gave religious advice, saying that the supposed entertainment of his passenger's wardrobe was part of the devil's work. There's a part pa of the video that was most disturbing, where the driver warned Ezekiel that he would never make it to heaven. The awkwardness on Kim Ezekiel's face can be seen as he listened and nodded in discomfort. Another case pa of maltreatment among LGBTQ+ individuals is this. This happened during lockdown when a group of gay friends were arrested by the barangay police for allegedly violating social distancing guidelines. But the following events turned violent dahil bukod sa pinaghahampas sila, their hair, which they cared for over several years, was cut off as a supposed lesson to prevent them from repeating their actions. Wala silang ibang nagawa kundi umiyak na lamang and plead for their hair not to be cut. A video showing a group of young men attacking a gay man without any provocation in Zamboanga City goes viral on social media. The incident, which happened on Sunday, August 15, shows an unsuspecting victim walking along Toribio Street around 5 a.m. when one of the 8 young men ran toward him, leaped, and kicked the gay man at the back of his head. The group then sneered and chased the horrified victim. As the assaulters were identified through the video, they confessed that it was just a tripping lang. This violence caused the victim, which named Michelle, to suffer physical injuries and psychological trauma, saying, "Sa lakas ng pagkakasipa sa akin, nilagnat ako ng 5 araw at hindi nakalabas ng bahay." It's devastating to hear that a member of the LGBTQIA+ community has been subjected to homophobic violence, as if those who assaulted thought it was just a joke when in reality it is a serious hate crime that should not be tolerated. That's why the government should take a stronger stance against this and ensure that those responsible are held accountable for their actions. Because everybody, regardless of your sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and sex characteristics should be.
To continue, there are still some indigenous cultures where LGBTQIA+ people are poorly received or accepted, and because of this, a lot of LGBTQIA people in those cultures still opt to conceal their gender identification as they are afraid of being ridiculed. These are primarily people from places where the machismo culture is relatively strong, and indigenous cultural traditions and social-political systems are still prevalent. So you may ask, unsa man ning machismo culture? So basically, it is a social construct wherein masculinity that is common in Latin American and Spanish cultures sets norms on how men should behave as courageous and strong. Not only that, it also includes behaviors of being possessive and demeaning towards women or those seen as inferior. On the other hand, in communities where indigenous socio-political structures have begun to crumble, more LGBTQIA+ people are becoming visible and receiving public recognition. Just like the photo in the slide, wherein the people of the Cordillera are given an informative discussion about the LGBTQ community and their rights. However, while there are efforts, discrimination has increased vulnerability to trauma, other mental health issues, antisocial behavior, and abuses of fundamental human rights, since they were told that their nonconformity to heterosexuality is a mental illness. This is why some LGBTQIA+ have, at some time in their lives, come believe that they are indeed mentally sick. So, the discrimination towards the LGBTQ community is something that shouldn't be taken lightly. Kaya for the doer, it may be as little as a quote-unquote simple comment, but to the community, it already is enormously impactful for their identity, rights, and mental health. That said, many LGBTQIA+ people have tendency to stick together, conceal their gender identity, and usually move to urban areas where they can express themselves more openly as a coping method. However, these cases of discrimination against the LGBTQIA community have not only been damaging for the adults, but also for the children as well. Human Rights Watch has consistently obtained information that schools fail to teach pupils about what entails bullying of the LGBTQIA students, how to report incidents when they occur, and what the consequences will be. Because of this, many schools give offenders a subliminal nod of approval, while victims are left in the dark about whether or how to get assistance. Despite this, schools are required to adopt and disseminate policies on bullying and harassment under both the Child Protection Policy and the Anti-Bullying Law. There may have been anti-bullying lectures held in the schools, but their generic nature prevented them from specifically addressing bullying motivated by prejudices on sexual orientation. So in grade school, I saw this firsthand when speakers will go to our school and have lectures on anti-bullying. Yet, I never once recalled na gi-address nila nga dili dapat mangbully sa mga bata, whether ni conform ba sila sa traditional gender expression and sexual orientation or not, when in fact isa to sa mga pinaka-obvious na issues sa school. So, when students do not know how to report bullying and harassment or do not think that reporting would be helpful, they are less likely to bring occurrences to the attention of teachers and administrators. However, a teacher's unfavorable remarks towards LGBTQIA students were the reason why some students are reluctant to report bullying. Moreover, positive values and morals are instilled in Filipino students through values education subjects. However, there are students that have observed some concerning messages or themes in these courses that have been described by others as explicit religious lessons that belittled LGBTQIA+ individuals. So, this is also a very obvious effect of the Filipino culture and the lack of sensitivity na sad sa education system na bisan sa school na encourage ang demoralizing na texts against the LGBTQIA community. Two instances of these perceived discriminatory religious teachings include many conservative interpretations of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism hold that homosexuality is a sin or immoral, and that same-sex relationships are not permissible. These beliefs are often based on specific passages from religious texts such as the Bible, Quran, or Torah. Moreover, some religious teachings suggest that LGBTQ people are morally corrupt or deviant. For example, some conservative Christian teachings view same-sex attraction as a form of sexual brokenness that can be cured through therapy or prayer.